think we're going to go ahead and get started. If you want to take your seats. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to International House here at the University of Chicago. We are indeed just thrilled to be able to welcome all of you here in person after this very, very long gap in our programming. So welcome to this special program in partnership with the Chicago Ensemble. My name is Denise Jorgens, and I'm the director of International House. The mission of International House of Chicago and International Houses Worldwide, which is currently a network of 20 houses on 4 continents, is to enable students and scholars from around the world to live and learn together in a diverse community that builds lifelong qualities of leadership, respect, and friendship. This mission is achieved by daily interaction among our students and scholars through internationally focused public programs such as today's event, our unique facilities and community life activities designed to foster diversity of thought and experience. Today's program is one of over 100 programs held at International House of Chicago as a part of our Global Voices Performing Arts and Lecture Series. Whether it's a music or dance performance, a film festival, cultural or national celebration, lecture, conference, or symposium, International House presents programs that advance cross-cultural understanding and promote civic discourse on community, national, and world affairs. We invite you to join us here at International House throughout the remainder of this academic year for many more of our Global Voices, in-person Global Voices Performing Arts and Lecture programs, many of which are also live streamed or recorded for later viewing. Information about our programs is available on the literature table in the entryway, where you can also sign up to receive our weekly e-bulletin. And of course, you may find much more information on our website and on the Chicago Ensemble website. On behalf of the Global International House community and the Chicago Ensemble, again, I welcome you back and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the program, and now I'll invite Jerry Rizzer to begin today's program. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Denise. It's great to be back after a long hiatus. We've been at International House for 45 of our 45 years. And it's really good to be performing live music once again, despite the somewhat constrained attire that we have to have. It's also really good to be playing this Beethoven trio that we're going to end the concert with. That was the very first concert we ever did. It was an all Beethoven concert. I felt, well, we were going to have programs where different combinations of instruments and voices were going to appear. And so to sort of have something to grab onto as a focus, we did mostly topical programs, as we are today too when we're doing all classical period works. And as part of that Beethoven program, we did this great trio, which I had always loved, and I'm sure you will. It's also wonderful to have a reunion of Andy and Steve. We've done many concerts together over the years. It's also a privilege to have been born after Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. Because just imagine not getting to hear that music. And these 3 trios are superb examples of their art. We're going to begin with Haydn. By the way, there's nothing wrong with the microphone. It's not an amplifying microphone. It's a microphone so that those who are listening on live stream can hear the verbal comments. At any rate, Haydn was certainly one of the most experimental composers in history. That may seem like an outrageous, strange statement to make, but I think it is true. And I think that the trio that we're going to play gives good evidence of that. Like Verdi, Haydn lived a long life, started out pretty good, got better and better and better, and when he was an old man, wrote some of his greatest music. The son of a stonemason, he was far from prosperous. When his family recognized, when Haydn was just a child, that he had great talent, they sent him to live with a musician relative. And after a while, the town where this musician relative lived was a place where the recruitment team from St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna came looking for choir boys. And Haydn was selected. That meant that the rest of his pre-adolescence, at any rate, was spent in Vienna at the cathedral as a singer. Only he was somewhat mischievous, as the humor, and especially in his last movements, sometimes reveals. He cut off the pigtail of the kid in front of him, and more importantly, the Empress Marie Therese commented that he is croaking. At the age of 16, his voice had changed and he was thrown out, whereupon he became a street musician, actually, but his talent was nonetheless recognized, and he was offered a job by one of the richest princes of Europe, the richest of the Habsburg princes, Esterhazy. And this prince had built a palace in what's modern day, Hungary in the boonies. He liked being out of Vienna. Haydn, however, liked being in Vienna. And there were three different princes Esterhazy that Haydn served. By the time of the third one, the aristocrats of Europe were downsizing, and no longer could they afford quite as much as they had. But at the time that Haydn began, he was pretty busy. He had a full orchestra in residence. He had an opera company. He performed as a singer and as a violinist and as a pianist. And he had to continuously write new music. So eventually, though, by the third Esterhazy, he got his wish to spend more time in Vienna. And at that point, he befriended Mozart. This is 1784, so Haydn was a little over 50 years old at the time. Mozart was never 50 years old, unfortunately. So there was a whole generation difference in their ages. But they became really good friends and mutual admirers. Mozart, in fact, wrote string quartets dedicated to Haydn. They read quartets together. Mozart, I think, probably played viola. He preferred viola to playing violin, probably in defiance of his father, who was a violinist. But at any rate, the trio that you're going to hear now was not familiar to me, despite 45 years of chamber music here. And it's listed in the Hoboken catalog. That's not New Jersey. That's a guy who cataloged Haydn's works the way Köchel, the K catalog numbers are for Mozart. And subsequently, in our day, a musicologist in England named Robbins Landon has re-examined the catalog for correct chronology. So this trio is listed as number 14. There is no way that any person who is listening carefully could think that this is number, an earlier work of Haydn, because he wrote over 30 trios. It is so full of imagination, sudden stops, sudden changes of key to outlandish places, uses of motives that had one role earlier on and then a different role later on in the piece. Of the three movements, the So at any rate, the numbering has changed, and it's a much later number now. It, in fact, was written in 1790, and that constitutes late Haydn. It also constitutes the year that Haydn went on his first of his 2 trips, having been invited to London, where he was a tremendous success. It's also the year that, going to London, he stopped in Bonn, Germany, and he was introduced to a young Beethoven. So Beethoven, a couple of years later, began to study with Haydn. The trio, probably the first movement is the most capricious. The second movement has a very lyrical, sweet melody played by the violin at the beginning and the end. In the middle, it's as if Haydn said, "Oh, wow, we now have invented the piano instead of the harpsichord, and I'm going to have a chance to play some flashy stuff." So that's what he does for the middle part of the movement. I can't vouch for what Haydn said to himself, or whether he even did it on a harpsichord or a piano, but by this time more likely a piano. And then the last movement is characteristically perky and playful. So here is Haydn's trio. Well, the Hoboken numbers have stuck, despite the fact that later scholarship shows them not to be correct. And this is the 14th of his trios, the only one in A flat. Pretty good composer, don't you think? It's got future. We come now to Mozart. He did not write nearly as many trios, not only because he lived half as long, but also there are other things that he did write, many, many of, but few piano trios. And this is probably the most, well, definitely the most lyrical. Even the first movement, marked Allegro, is sort of expansive and warm and not dramatic or driving. It is followed by a beautiful movement, which is really a kind of a gavotte, at least rhythmically it is. It is, however, much more expressive than you'd ever expect to find a gavotte meant for dancing. This is partly due to the beauty of Mozart's choice of harmonies. In fact, it's kind of a rondo in itself. That is, the main theme keeps coming back, and each time it's slightly differently harmonized. In the last movement, even there, it's not quick and perky the way this one is, although it's not slow by any means, but it still has a warm lyrical melody. Now, you all know about Mozart being a prodigy and having a father who was a violinist and is probably remembered more for his his method of violin playing, which was highly regarded at the time. But Mozart's father was ambitious on behalf of his son and paraded him around Europe to play for royalty. And while he was a cute 6-year-old, I suppose that he had plenty of attention. As he got older, it was a little harder for him to hold a job, or to get a job, I should say. And he did have an ongoing position with the Archbishop of Salzburg, the city of his birth. The Archbishop was also the governor, as was probably not unusual in Catholic country. Mozart and the Archbishop did not get along too well, partly because Mozart was always out looking for another job. He finally just got kicked out, and he went to Vienna and also freelanced, as Haydn did some years earlier. He managed to do quite well, really, as a self-promoter. He wrote some of his greatest music are piano concertos, and he would be the soloist. I don't know when he had time to practice, but somehow he did. And he would get together the other musicians and I guess the audience. He also played some of his chamber works for self-promoted concerts. As I mentioned, in 1784, Haydn was given some freedom by the third of the Esterhazy princes, and that allowed Haydn to spend his time in Vienna instead of up in the boonies in Hungary. At that point, he and Mozart played string quartets together and exchanged string quartets that they dedicated to each other. I love the fact that Mozart says in his dedication to Haydn, "I've had to revise these often," and that is so gratifying that, that the music didn't just come down from heaven to Mozart, that even he had to work at it, especially when he was doing something for somebody whom he greatly respected. As a matter of fact, the third movement of the trio we're about to play has 64 measures that Mozart had intended originally for the last movement and then rejected. So, the piece that we're going to play was written in 1788, 2 years before the one we just played by Haydn, but 4 years after he and Haydn had struck up this friendship. That year 1788 was not Mozart's most productive in the sense of that he wrote the most works, nor was he the happiest. However, I think he did a pretty good job writing symphonies number 39, 40, and 41, three of the greatest pieces in the literature, period. And they were written in 1788 as well. The key of this piece is E major, one that Mozart rarely, if ever, used. Haydn was more adventuresome when it came to keys that he selected. Not that Mozart doesn't change key within a piece, it's just that the starting keys are usually fairly confined to some of the standard keys. Within the key, however, he might do things like going through every possible key in Symphony number 40, first movement. We've already discussed the character of the three movements. So let's, without further delay, play the Mozart E major trio.
So, yeah, I covered presidential campaigns. I did all that stuff. I did anything you could. I never covered the Olympics, but I covered most other things.
Wow. That's so you've had an interesting life.
Yeah, I'm much retired now.
I gotta change.
Oh, you gotta do work. Do you have a car?
Yeah.
I can be mine too.
Okay.
Now I'm a consultant. Just a nice work for. Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you.
Just took one for real on me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got my Brussels number on it too.
Yeah. Public affairs now, huh?
Yeah, that's a nice word for doing lobbying and PR. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's
very interesting stuff.
It is.
Very impressive.
It's kind of cool.
Keeps changing.
Oh yeah.
Keeps just changing. He's just getting better and better and better and better and better. But I know I've seen this. Oh, you don't have to. Do you ever work with colors?
Work with what?
People who do the color. They have the little tent. They do the color when they shoot movies. In order in the editing, you have to do color.
Yeah, color grading. I do that.
You do that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I will let you go, but thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good day.
Ensemble's unique part is presenting what I call the big composers that we all know. Down the road in the other programs, will have lesser known names, but no less quality in their compositions. So we hope that if you haven't purchased a subscription, that you would continue to buy the individual concerts. We also have some programs for the, some prices for the remainder of the season at some discounted prices. We also have coming up our 45th anniversary. Can you believe it? 45 years ago. And I think we're one of the longest running performing arts groups, aside from CSO and the others in Chicago. And it's quite a mark for an organization to remain viable and vibrant for that length of time. And on March 12th, we're having our 45th anniversary celebration. And I provided some flyers. You can take those with you and decide if you can make it. I'm sure it's going to be a really delightful affair. Finally, I have to give the pitch. The tickets only cover about a third of the cost to make the ensemble go. So if you can send in a donation of any size, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps us move on. We've created a new website. We've done a lot of backroom things for organizing logistics. We've started the live stream, and so we're doing a lot of things to help us move forward. And your contribution helps us keep us vibrant, keep us going for the next 50 years. So, thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the concert.
So we turn now to Beethoven. I took passes. So as I mentioned, the year of the Haydn piece that we did was also the year that we went to London, where he premiered some of his last symphonies to great acclaim. And he went again a couple of years later. But on that first trip, as I said, he stopped in Bonn, where he was introduced to the young Beethoven and invited him to come and study. However, Beethoven already a few years earlier, when he was 14 or so, had taken a trip to Vienna, intent on studying with Mozart. And it's not known whether he actually ever hooked up with Mozart while he was on that trip to Vienna. There's no record of it. But he still wanted to study with Mozart when it was more realistic, when he was 22. And that is 1792. And unfortunately, Mozart died that year. So at that point, Beethoven went to study with Haydn, after all. And I think that Beethoven learned an immense amount from Haydn, but Beethoven didn't acknowledge that. He may have been resentful because Haydn took that second trip to London while Beethoven was already a student, but he was back in time to arrange for the debut of Beethoven, the composer. First published works are Opus 1, 3 piano trios, which are each a masterpiece. And unlike Mozart, Schubert, Mendelssohn, and people like that, Beethoven did not write great music when he was a teenager. It's not very good, I don't think. And so therefore, I say he learned an awful lot from Haydn. In 1795, when Haydn had returned, there was a house concert, which I'm sure Haydn was the one who arranged it, with all the music-loving aristocrats. Beethoven was fortunate in having patronage from aristocrats in Vienna who happened to also be great music lovers. So at any rate, he made a very auspicious debut, and I think undeniably learned a lot from Haydn, although he said he didn't. And however, years later, the year of the composition we're about to play is 1808. By that time, Beethoven has moved past what we call the first of his three style periods, where he's essentially classicist, and well into the unbelievably productive and original works of his middle period. And this year, by 1808, Haydn is an old man, but in his late years, he wrote two oratorios that have become famous, the Seasons and the Creation, as well as a number of masses. That was mostly what he wrote in his old age. And Beethoven went to hear the Creation. I say hear in the supposition that he still could hear. I think he could. And maybe went there partly to make amends for having been a brash and ungrateful young man. At any rate, that is the year of this piece, one of two works from Opus 70, and this one doesn't have a nickname. The first one is called The Ghost and is more well known, but this is probably, in my view anyway, the most beautiful of his piano trios. To show you that he still had Haydn on his mind, or again had Haydn on his mind, we will hear the second movement of this piece, which is a double set of variations, something that Haydn liked to do especially, which is to say there's a theme in major and then a theme in minor, contrasting theme. And then each theme is subjected to variations in a back and forth. And that is the form that is taken by the second movement of this trio. Even the playful beginning theme, the major theme, has some Haydnesque qualities to it. The third movement, however, there is no slow movement. The third movement is not a slow movement, but rather a Ländler. A Ländler being a Tyrolean dance, somewhere closer to a waltz than a minuet, but a little bit different. And what is recalled here is Schubert. Now, it is not possible that Beethoven copied Schubert. It is entirely possible that Schubert copied Beethoven. Schubert was 27 years younger than Beethoven, and they both worked in Vienna. But as far as the record shows, Beethoven was not acquainted with Schubert's music until towards the end of their lives. I say that because Schubert died very young, a year after Beethoven. But Beethoven always revered, Schubert always revered Beethoven, who gave public concerts, and Schubert admired him greatly. So it's not likely that Beethoven copied Schubert, but it sure sounds like it. The first movement begins moderately slow. The theme of that movement is used as a transition between the first and second main themes of the faster portion, the main portion of the first movement. There are actually several themes, and a couple of them are kind of variations on each other. That we've discussed the second and third movements. The last movement has an upward surging scales, and as soon as you get towards the top, it suddenly is quiet and sounds like an echo across the mountains. This is, of course, this sudden contrast of loud and soft is one of the things that characterizes Beethoven's middle period. But also, it's interesting because it is one of the few similarities between Opus 70 number 2, which this one is, and Opus 70 number 1, which is The Ghost. And that also begins with rising burst of energy and then suddenly dissolves into something lyrical, just as it gets to the top of the scales. So whether he was intending the two of them to be performed together, I don't know. They're otherwise quite contrasting. So here is Opus 70, number 2 in E flat by Beethoven.
So I took my Beethoven back. I took my Beethoven back. Stephen, the rest is yours.
What is?
Oh wait, this is.
No, I remember